Um, Hey, welcome to Amp Up Solar Talk. Joining me today is Milo. He's worked for LG and now EG4. He's here to break down what makes this LG high voltage battery a perfect fit for residential solar. He will also cover how these pair well with the Grow Watt Min and also give us a preview with our upcoming bundle of the Solus 11.4 kilowatt inverter that we'll be launching on our website soon. Both great options for backup power. If you've got questions, drop them in the chat. He's here to help answer those for you. Milo, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me over.
Yeah, for sure. So to start us off, can you tell us a little bit about your background? What did you do for LG and what brought you over to join the EG4 team?
Definitely. I've been in the industry for quite some time. Excuse me. I started as a contractor, so I did my boots on the ground experience there. And then I joined the LG team, excuse me, a couple of years ago. And what I helped the LG team is basically work with their domestic content LFP cells that they're planning to launch here in the US.
So when you say LFP, you're talking about the lithium iron phosphate batteries.
That's right. That's right. Excuse me. I'm really having trouble here with the allergies.
Sure. So you were helping them to launch their batteries here in the United States.
That's right. That's right. Now we're only talking on the LFP cells for OEM providers. And so my relationship with the EG4 has been around for a couple of years. So I noticed EG4 has been growing, very innovative. So it's my taste. So I naturally joined the team.
Right. So you're helping them continue to innovate as they're known for.
That's right. That's right.
Nice. Well, we'll look forward to seeing what happens with you being with them.
Absolutely.
Great. So from your time at LG, what stands out to you about their approach with battery technology and their system design?
Yeah, absolutely. So LG is a little bit conservative when it comes to the design, especially with safety. So they were designing batteries before UL 9540 was a thing. So they took that very serious. And so their approach is very slow and conservative in that type of scenario. And so this battery sort of represents their third generation, which is one of their most successful units that they've launched before.
Yeah. Wonderful. So safety was important even before UL standards or UL 9540 came along. Talk to me a little bit about what UL 9540 is.
Yeah, absolutely. So UL 9540 is a testing condition that's done at the system level. That means with the inverter and the battery pack itself. And so it undergoes several test conditions provided by certain guidelines. And it evolves about every 2 years. So every manufacturer has to meet a UL 9540, especially if it needs to be grid type.
Yeah. Okay. And does this battery have UL 9540?
That is correct. It does have UL 9540, especially at the system level with multiple systems that we'll be discussing today.
Perfect. So tell me about this battery. Give me a high-level overview of its features.
Absolutely. So this one that we're looking here is the LG Prime. It's a 16H or 16 kilowatt hour. It's got a 7 kilowatt continuous output. You can put two in parallel with 32 kilowatt hours in storage capacity and 14 kilowatts of continuous output.
Okay. And this is high voltage. And I know a lot of us are used to 48 volt systems. And so to understand high voltage is a little bit kind of out of our knowledge bank. So help us understand the advantages of a high voltage system as compared to low voltage. And what are the benefits of that?
Yes. One of the key benefits of a high voltage system is obviously, as we're starting to see more and more inverters come out in the market with higher output, naturally the market's going to shift towards high voltage. And the benefits of that is that one of the ones that I like the most is the wire size. So with this one here being a 400 volt system, we're looking at a number 8 gauge wire as opposed to a 48 volt system that requires maybe somewhere between 2 and a 4 depending on your system size. That's one of the key advantages. Obviously, the other thing is temperature. So with the lower amperage rate, it keeps the battery a lot cooler and more efficient. Yeah.
Okay, so the efficiency is able to allow things to flow through there a whole lot easier, which keeps the temperature down.
That's right. And obviously cost. I mean, with a smaller gauge wire, you're looking at smaller costs.
Smaller conduit.
Smaller conduit, that's
easier
right.
installation.
That's right. So if you look at a number 8 gauge wire, you're probably looking anywhere between a 3/4 and a 1-inch conduit, as opposed to a number 4. I'm sorry, a 2-aught or a 4-aught gauge wire. You're looking at 2-inch and plus. So, you know, you got to take into consideration the bands, the radius. You know, when you're doing your 90s, even 45s, you know, those tend to cost a lot if you buy the components and the fixtures, as opposed to smaller conduit size.
So from an installer perspective, this is a much easier installation.
Much easier installation, correct.
And from a homeowner's perspective, this is a cost-effective installation.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Now let's talk about compatibility. Right. So currently we offer a bundle on our website with the GrowWatt Min grid tie inverter, a 7.4 kilowatt and 11.4 kilowatt inverter. And very soon we're going to be launching the same bundle with a Solus 11.4 kilowatt inverter. So we've got performance, we've got functionality, we've got communication. What is the difference between, say, this grid tie inverter and we've got a hybrid inverter? If I have this choice to make between an 11.4 kilowatt grid tie inverter and 11.4 kilowatt hybrid inverter, how do I know which one is right for me?
That's right. Well, definitely, you know, if you're dealing with Signature Solar, you can definitely call in our number and ask for assistance, and we can help you with the design. But more importantly, you have to know what your needs are, and both systems can meet your needs. Between hybrid and the grid tied inverter, don't get too lost on the technical terms. They're both doing a great job as far as what the systems will be, but it truly does come down to your application and your need as far as what you will need for either systems. Yeah.
So is there anything that one does better than the other? Or do they work differently? Do they work the same?
Well, if we look at the GrowWatt MIN inverter, and it comes with an SYN, and that tends to be what we call a hub or a gateway, and that allows a 200 amp pass-through, which in technical terms, in engineering terms actually, it's a whole home backup. It allows you to back up your entire 200 amp sub panel or main panel, right?
Okay.
And so that's the great thing about the GrowWatt MIN inverter. For the Solus inverter, I tend to use a Solus inverter in applications where you have an existing PV system that may be dated with an out of warranty inverter, and you're looking for a replacement. I feel that the Solus is a better suit for that. And so you're able to replace the out of warranty inverter, and you're allowed to introduce a battery. And it's those case scenarios would be for time of use. And so that's where I see the differentiation. Whereas the Solus, it doesn't have a gateway or a hub similar to an SYN, at least not yet. So those are the two different applications where I see the case use for.
Okay, what about expandability in those cases?
That's right. So with the Solus, you can add multiple inverters, whereas with the GrowWatt MIN, you can only use one at the moment. I believe they're trying to upgrade their SYN where you're able to allow multiple inverters, but that's not available at the moment.
Okay. Yeah. So we do have some audience questions that have come in. Matt Man67, he wants to know, are any of the EG4 inverters going to be capable of using high voltage batteries? He says there's only low voltage option at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So part of the reason why I joined the EG4 team is because of innovation. So without disclosing too much and what we're working on, I can tell you that we are meeting market demand, and the market right now is signaling that everything's shifting over to high voltage. So to your question, count on that.
Okay. And Bill Bertrand wants to know, he says, please give me a Reader's Digest explanation of the best methods, NEC approved, of course, of securing wiring behind the solar panels leading to the DC shutoff breakers.
Oh, that's a good question. You know what? We have a lot of solutions for that already, different accessories. So I can't really pick one, but you know, I'm a boots on the ground kind of guy. So zip ties work great for me. And obviously, any kind of devices that deal with. He mentioned a rapid shutdown device, right? Or
DC shutoff breakers.
yeah. So if you're talking about using a combiner on the DC side, I'm not a big fan of those. I'd rather run all the strings straight to the inverter, in my opinion. It might be a little bit costly, especially if you're running long long runs to your array, but it makes all the world of a difference. So yeah, I would run all your strings straight to the inverter.
Okay. And Mark Dutko says, can we get some logic-based statements in the EG4 hybrid inverters for more flexibility in programming? Some if-then or other options. The existing profiles are very restrictive.
Yeah, I can tell you that much. I am working on the software side. I am excited to say, without disclosing too much, that we do plan to upgrade the software platform as well as the user interface. So look out for that. Absolutely. That has been one of the biggest requests coming into EG4. Yeah.
He does say thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Gordon Cox says, what is high voltage with respect to our current selections of 12 volt, 24 volt, and 48 volt?
So what is a differentiator? Or
sure.
Yeah, so with high voltage, let me see if I can explain it again in a different format. When you're dealing with, even as low as 6 volts and you're putting multiple systems in parallel, you're dealing with thicker gauge wires. To me, it's always been down to the installation process because of my experience. And so the reason why I like high voltage, you're dealing with a smaller gauge wire and less amperage. If you start understanding Ohm's law and heat dissipation and all those other issues, you can certainly appreciate high voltage compared to your low voltage 12 and 24 volts. 48 volts is sort of the norm at the moment, and I can certainly appreciate it because that's what's allowed us to grow, especially in the renewable market. But as you get more and more familiar to high voltage, it's relatively the same thing, just a bigger number, smaller gauge wire. Yeah.
So if you think about the math,
yeah,
when you're talking about wattage,
that's right.
Voltage and times amperage gives you the wattage that you're looking for.
That's right. So if you do 400 volts times 10 amps, it gives you that number as opposed to 48 volts and a higher amperage, it still gives you X amount of numbers. So the Ohm's law and the application volts times amperage still comes out as far as the output.
Yeah. So the more push you have, the less amps
That's right.
you have going through.
That's right.
All right. So are there any common questions or misconceptions that you run into about high voltage battery systems that we can help clear up today?
Yeah. One of them is obviously how dangerous they are. Right.
Yeah. They're scary.
They're scary. I mean, I'll admit, the first time I heard 400 volts at a residential level, I was like, really?
Yeah.
But then you start learning. I mean, you start getting familiar with the product and understanding. I mean, if you already do 48 volts, it's the same concept. You still have the same level of respect for any kind of voltage, to be honest with you. And so that follows suits even with 400 voltage. And so to me, that's the biggest misconception, that it's extremely dangerous. And I believe it's not. It's the same safety components as any other lower voltage system.
You still have to be completely safe.
Oh, absolutely. You still have to practice safety. That goes without saying.
Yeah. Right. So if I'm a DIY person that I'm hands-on.
That's right.
And I'm thinking about installing a high voltage system, but I'm a little scared of high voltage. Should I be?
Well, I don't think you should. You should totally respect it.
Sure.
And treat it the same way as any other low voltage system. I don't think you should be scared. You just practice common sense, practice your NEC codes. If you get some electrical background and respect all those codes, you should be fine. I really think that a 400 volt system is safe enough.
So you think that this is something that a DIY person can install? It's not for installers only.
That's right. I do believe that a DIYer can do this.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think we answered all of those questions.
Yeah.
What does system sizing and scaling look like with the LG batteries? We've talked about that you can have 2 in parallel. Is there any options for scaling larger with these batteries?
At the moment, you're limited to what the inverter pairing can do. So it's either the firmwares, their solutions, how they base their systems in parallel, it comes down to the inverter, not so much the battery, unfortunately. So due to the high voltage situation, engineers thought that maybe, and due to market conditions, they looked at 2 would be the maximum that you would parallel, but certainly it does come down to inverter manufacturers and their firmware.
Okay, so is there a possibility that if you could parallel multiple inverters together, you could parallel 2 batteries per inverter?
That's right. So with the discussing the Solus, I'm sorry, that you can add multiple inverters, you can add 2 of these prime batteries per inverter, so you can definitely scale up. Yeah.
Okay. What is your favorite thing about the high voltage batteries, or these batteries in particular?
Oh yeah. So one of the things, LG was one of the very first battery systems that was tier 1 that provided modular setup. Now, for those that don't know what modular setup, and maybe you haven't installed the battery yet, usually it's a 2-man team, right? And that can take a lot of hours, and cost can go up. With this system, it's actually modular. It's broken down into multiple pieces that one person can handle.
It is.
Yeah. So
I did this myself.
Exactly.
It's great.
Yeah, and then add obviously the high voltage and the wiring and the smaller gauge wire.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really a no-brainer. I think it's DIY friendly all the way through.
These are really nice, and we got a video coming out soon to show you how to assemble these.
That's right.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
So Jeff Peterson wants to know, what lasts longer, high voltage battery or low voltage?
Oh, it all comes down to cycles. So relatively everything's the same. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's cycles, temperature, sometimes even elevation can play a role. So if you're comparing this to 48 volt system, even a 24 or 12 volt, you're still dealing with cycles. That's what degrades a battery. Degrades a battery. Yeah.
Okay. What is the warranty on
this? Is a
batteries?
10-year warranty on the battery. Correct. I believe, I can't remember the throughput, but it's a very strong 10-year warranty. And so LG has a great US customer support, as well as Signature Solar. So definitely we can support on that end.
Okay, nice. So now that you're with EG4,
yes,
and we've kind of already addressed this a little bit, are there any technologies or integration possibilities that you're excited to announce that are on the horizon?
Yeah, absolutely. One, we had a question, especially when it comes to software and UI experience. So I am working very deep in the software side of things for EG4, and I'm excited to say that we're going to be able to provide some additional revenue for homeowners and system owners, and that is through virtual power plant programs. So in case you don't know what VPP is, virtual power plant programs are by state, by city, by certain regions where they allow homeowners or participants of systems to be able to discharge their batteries for a higher rate than what they buy energy for.
Okay.
So let's say there's an event in Austin where they're requiring so many megawatt hours, and you're part of that VPP program. certain retail energy provider sends a signal to your system, and you're able to discharge the battery at a certain high rate that obviously compensates you at whatever given agreement it is. And so that's what I'm really excited about, that we're going to be able to provide that to every single EG4 user, given that they're in a participating area. Yeah.
And that's with the EG4 batteries.
That's with the EG4 batteries. That is correct.
Do you see any advantages coming on the horizon with high voltage in particular that's future forward in the next 5 years or so?
Well, I do know that almost everything's moving towards high voltage. And what I do see and that I'm excited about is the commercial, the CNI side. So EG4 will be entering that space hopefully soon. And everything dominates in high voltage. And the reason why that's important, as more and more data centers are being built throughout the US, it does affect our grid to some degree. So we need those data centers to be independent. And so that's where I see the technology and the high voltage taking place. Obviously, we bring that down to the residential, still very convenient. And very,
nice. We do have some more audience questions that have come through. It says, so in time, this is from Dobert in Exile. In time, should we be seeing new high voltage inverters becoming more common and maybe mainstream?
That's right. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
We're paying
Yeah.
attention to the market, and we're looking at different manufacturers throughout, not just in the United States, but a system. And again, this comes down to the output. If you want to apply Moore's law, the output seems to be increasing more and more and more, and that puts a lot of stress on low voltage systems. So we definitely need the high voltage solution, and that is what's going to be the norm in the coming years.
So get ready, it's coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of like the robots are coming.
Yeah, that's right.
And Ed Chin wants to know, are these LiFePO 4? Does it have fire suppression built in?
This particular battery is not LFP. It is an NMC. It is UL9540, so it has been tested. It is metal enclosure. And one of the reasons being that LG designed this is for that specific reason in question that you might be wondering, especially when it comes to thermal runaway. This has been the safest battery that LG has ever produced.
How long have these been out on the market?
So they've been around since 2020, and over 30,000 of these have been deployed in the US alone.
So they've got a good standing record.
Oh yeah, they got a good standing record. Absolutely.
All right. Well, Milo, our time is up, but I thank you so much for being here and for sharing your expertise and for helping us to connect the dots on simplicity, performance, and installer-ready solutions that are DIY friendly.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
And for those of you watching, thanks for participating in the conversation and for tuning in to Amp Up today. If you'd like to learn more about the LG battery bundles, or if you need help deciding which of these inverter solutions would be right for you, visit us at Signature Solar. We've got people there willing to help you talk through that. Also, don't forget, you can join us live every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Amp Up, and we'll see you next week on Amp Up Solar Talk.